I've said it once and I'll say it again. I really do have the dumbest enemies. One of the things that I've noticed since 2020 is that there's been a ratcheting up of ideological groupthink coming from the right. I don't buy into the whole alt-right pipeline narrative, mostly because no one forces you to watch a video or visit a website. People make a conscious decision to view those things. If all it took to convert someone was seeing something, then you'd expect that the people doing the exposés would fall for it too. You need more than just that. You need someone to be susceptible to indoctrination. They need to already hold some of those ideas they've been exposed to. They also need a community that supports and reinforces that worldview. This seems to be what happened to many YouTubers from the Gamergate era. As some of them moved to the right, others jumped on that bandwagon, and they now exist in a right-wing echo chamber where they peddle the most baby-brained political hot takes. That's where this gets interesting, because as people become more ideological, they look for enemies, and they usually go after people who they assume are on their side, but aren't towing the party line. The demand is very simple. We're all doing this thing, so you do it too. Do as you're told, or else. Now, I have a nasty habit of not liking people telling me what to do, and an even nastier habit of letting them know. This is why I didn't take well to progressives telling me who I should vote for, or who I could be friends with, or what opinions I should have about certain groups of people. You'd think this would signal to conservatives that if they tried the same thing, tried to tell me who to vote for, with whom I could be friends, what groups to support, and what opinions I can express, that I wouldn't bend the knee. You'd also think that they'd realize that if I already had progressives turn on me, despite mostly agreeing with them politically, that I would assume conservatives, who hate anyone left of center, would be looking for a good spot to plant a knife the moment I said anything they didn't like. Not only did this not occur to them, so they seem to be shocked that I'm not shocked that they consider me an enemy, but I seem to have attracted the most, and I want to be generous, bargain bin villains humanly possible. No one capable of making rational arguments, just people repeating the latest, dumbest right-wing NPC updates. I make it a point not to interact with these people, but occasionally someone says something so unbelievably stupid, I just can't help myself. Enter Vee. Again. I responded to this tweet he made about the left believing in equality, while the right believes in quality. Now I know that Vee doesn't sip the right-wing Kool-Aid, but guzzles it by the gallon, so I quote-tweeted him instead of responding directly, and that seemed to get under his precious little skin, and has been the case with conservatives who now deem me the enemy. He picked a fight to show off for his followers so he could wallow in their bukkake of likes. Unfortunately for Vee, I have too much dignity to pay for Twitter, so I couldn't properly respond to him on that platform. However, he made a video about it, too actually, so I figured I'd respond to that. And since I consider myself a gentleman, I want to make it clear that I will be as thorough as possible, and as always, with respect.
I don't like getting into conflicts with other content creators, but sometimes they just come at me foaming at the mouth, really upset and angry, and, well, you gotta defend yourself.
Is that why this is the second video you've made about this Twitter exchange? If you didn't want to get into a conflict, you could have ignored the tweet. After all, I didn't respond to you directly. I quote-tweeted you. You aren't following me, you just saw the quote tweet, clicked on it, and dropped your room temperature response. I wasn't trying to talk to you. I was just making fun of your dumbass argument. If I'd known you'd be so sensitive, I wouldn't have held back.
The reason I'm making a video is because what he actually said here is something that I notice on Twitter a lot.
No, as you admitted on your live stream, you're making a video so you can get a dopamine hit from your followers. It's also because you become so deeply ideological that the moment anyone challenges your bad argument and you don't have a counter-argument, you go for name-calling, personal attacks, and as you're doing here, straw manning. You're not going to address anything I said. What you're going to do is attack the straw leftist you have in your head. You were a meandering mess in your first video. Let's see if you got your argument together.
But in the rest of the world, in the rest of mankind, this thing is not controversial, and these types of arguments can only be found on Twitter and sometimes on Tumblr.
So that's a no. You don't have your argument together. Claiming that other people agree with your bad argument doesn't make your bad argument right. What kind of baby brain take is that? Just because Americans support something doesn't automatically make it bad.
I pointed out that the difference between the left and right is that the left believes in equality while the right believes in quality. Right? So like meritocracy type of thing.
Well, no. The word you used was quality, not meritocracy. Now, I'm not as fluent in English as you, but I'm pretty sure that meritocracy doesn't mean the same thing as quality. And I'm certain that's not what you were talking about. You were clearly implying that equality, that treating all people as if they have equal value as human beings, is a bad thing, and that treating some people as more valuable as human beings than others is a good thing. The problem with this argument is that people already tried your little idea in early 20th century Europe, and it didn't end well. Now, if you meant something different, you could have just told me that you were talking about meritocracy, even though that's not the word you used, but you didn't. Instead, you decided to light up a straw man and got pissy when I wouldn't defend it.
If you have a job, you want to hire the best person, basically, right? This doesn't mean that the other people should be dealt with.
V, it's plainly obvious I don't think you're talking about anyone's job. But instead of responding to that, you're just going after the straw leftist in your head, who ironically is still whooping your ass.
Alright, the left doesn't believe in this. The left believes it's like, alright, tell us about why you are here. Okay, well, let me tell you why I'm qualified. No, we don't want that. No. Your heritage, your pedigree, your mother. What race was she? She was what? Oh, no. Do you not have like a little bit of African American in you?
Dude, you've gone off on some tangent when all you had to do was steel man the left's position and then explain why you think it's batshit crazy. That would win the argument. But all you're interested in is playing to your followers, so you give up the easy win to come up with this 3-minute long straw man that has nothing to do with anything I said.
But it's a different way of thinking. Hey, if you want to run your business like this, I mean, you know, like if, for example, just some guy would want to hire an editor for his channel, and he wouldn't hire like based on how much the editor is charging or how well the editor is, like he would just hire, it's like, all right, show me your family tree. I want to pick up the magnifying glass and I'm going to look through your family tree to see if you have like the correct genes so that we can promote diversity.
This is a perfect example of ideological brain rot. This is what happens when someone is so deep in the echo chamber they can't even see the walls. This man's head is wedged so far up his ass even a fisting expert couldn't pull it out. The moment anyone talks like this, you must understand there is no reasoning with them. They're not trying to have a dialectic. They're not trying to have a dialogue. They're not trying to have a debate. They're not even trying to have a diatribe. They just want to score points for their side. All V's interested in is getting backpats from other right-wingers that he's owned the lib, so he will say whatever crazy shit he needs to so these people will fondle his balls. Like this.
I do not believe in equality whatsoever due to the fact that two brothers in the same household are not equal.
What are you even talking about? Equality doesn't mean every human being is exactly the same, dude, and no rational person arguing for equality thinks it does. What's being argued is that all people have the same intrinsic value as human beings and should be afforded the same rights and privileges in society and under the law. That's the left's actual opinion. What logical reason do you have to object to this? Why don't you present that instead of repeating 10-year-old 4chan hot takes?
So, just some guy says it's funny that the right were saying the same thing in Europe 100 years ago. I wonder if that's why they built those camps where people could concentrate. Yeah. So, literally, this is why I even made the video. The entire argumentation on Twitter can be summed up as Marvel movies and World War II. Like, this is the extent of human knowledge that these people are allowed to bathe in.
Oh, sick burn, dude. You got me, son. I'll be watching all those Marvel movies I've never seen because I don't care about the MCU. I'll be reading all them history books and watching history shows so I can notice when midwits try to do the same stupid shit that led to a world war nearly 100 years ago because they think it's based. Ah, damn, you got me. You are so wrapped up in your ideology, you don't even hear what you're saying. The lesson we learned from the insanity of 20th century Europe is to never let that happen again. So when someone starts talking the same, these people don't have any equality bullshit, the only response we should have is, hey, shut that shit down. Because we already know where that goes. And the last time I checked, the people who think like you lost.
If you look at human history, most of Europe were doing some offshoot of Marxism. I will explain what Marxism is to you right now, right? Because I actually had it in my country. Like, I benefited from it.
Listen, I'm not going to fall for your half-ass straw man. You made an argument about valuing quality people. I gave an example, probably the best example, of someone playing out that idea. And you respond with, what about Marxism, bro? We ain't talking about Marxism, socialism, or communism. We're talking about your retarded ass idea. Early 20th century Europe is what happens when someone plays out your dumbass idea. And that's not to the extreme either. It's literally just implementing it. If you think I'm wrong, name an instance where people have tried your idea that didn't result in prejudice, discrimination, oppression, or genocide. And again, I'm not talking about some sport or profession, and neither are you. We're both talking about people in general just living in a society. So that's the example I want. Find one, if you can.
So, do you know who didn't have those? The Americans. The Americans did not have an ideology where they believed X is oppressing Y, Y needs to rise up against X, seize the welfare redistributed.
No, instead we created the ideology that all men are equal, you know, that thing you disagree with, and then proceeded to completely contradict that ideology so we could oppress, enslave, and kill people as a means of gaining and maintaining wealth. Or as you would say, proceeded to be based. Now, I could go on about the racial and civil rights battles fought in the US, but we have so many corners of your ignorant argument to explore, so I'll just say that my black ass knows a hell of a lot more about the racial history of the United States than you. So you might want to drop that one, son.
So I point out, like, if you want to cherry pick extremes, we can look at the Great Leap Forward. This is what the communists did.
No, it's not cherry picking extremes. The moment you implement this idea that one group has more value as human beings than another, that opens up the door to the mistreatment of those you consider to be worth less. You're welcome to give me an example of a society where that didn't happen. My ears are perked. That said, I want to point out that in your live stream, you said that you would never mention gulags and such in any argument, and yet here you are talking about communism. This is what conservatives do whenever anyone criticizes them, as if that makes their bad ideas less bad. It doesn't. It just makes you look stupid because it's just a half-assed attempt to dodge the criticism of your argument. If you had anything to address the criticism, like evidence that what you're suggesting isn't remarkably similar to the craziness that spread across early 20th century Europe, you'd have presented it, but you don't. So you go back to the typical right-wing response of waving around communism like it's some sort of Jedi mind trick. That doesn't work on me because I don't support communism and would never defend it. You're wasting your time. But not mine. I will have it known that I am not a one-minute man. We ain't even past foreplay.
And when you talk about left wing, right wing, it's unfair to say, oh, you want equality? You want the gulags. You want forced labor.
And yet that's literally been your entire counter-argument to this straw leftist you concocted in your head. Here's what you said in your other video.
So, like, forcing people to be equal is tyrannical, is wrong, is reprehensible.
It's just straight up baby's first conservatism. You have no idea what you're talking about. You're just repeating whatever you read on right-wing Twitter, like some convict who read Malcolm X's biography in prison and thinks that makes him an expert on the white man. Address the arguments I actually made, not the retarded straw leftist in your head.
So, he goes on and again, like, says that the funny thing that you can have equality without genocide by valuing all people. So this is what I took a problem with. It's like, how can you value all people? You obviously don't, right? Like, you value your family more than you value your close circle of friends.
It's called an ideal, genius. Have you never heard of an ideal before? What, they don't have those in your country? The ideal of treating all people as equal is a thing we aspire to, and it is achievable if we do it. The problem is that we have people like you, who always go, well, I shouldn't have to care about other people because we don't share the same DNA. Thing is, no one's asking you or any conservative to care about anyone. You are free, for instance, not to care about the scores of boys gangbanged by priests. What you're being asked to do is consider that those boys have the same intrinsic value as human beings as the people you do care about. Now, if you did that, there's a good chance you might actually care about those boys. But even if you didn't care, you'd still think it was a bad idea to let those boys get gangbanged. And that would be a better outcome than the current right-wing response of nothing to see here.
Like this is also a very easy thing to describe. Like, there's a burning building. Your mother is on the left, and your neighbor is on the right. You can only rescue one person. Who are you going to rescue?
Yeah, that's called a moral dilemma. And for normal, rational, ethical people, it poses a problem because they'd actually feel guilty about letting someone die who they could have saved. But for ideologues like you, anyone not in your little care circle, their lives are forfeit. So if that other person were, say, a 5-year-old girl, well, for you, the choice is easy. You'd pick your mom. A normal, rational, ethical person would understand that you love your mother, but you should save the girl.
This is what the left does, you know? They look at human nature, and they say, well, this is unacceptable.
Jesus Christ. You are living in a delusion so magnificently structured, you'd think it was designed by Tolkien's elves. What are you talking about? Some parts of human nature are unacceptable. It's unacceptable that people assault and kill each other. It's unacceptable that people abuse their kids. It's unacceptable that people exploit each other, that they use the law and religion to control and abuse each other. Do you disagree? Dude, listen to yourself. You've fallen into a black hole of nuttery, a veritable cum dump of right-wing stupidity. For the love of all that's holy, at least don't swallow.
And you know, like, when you say value, like, what exactly do you mean? Like, some people have value in certain aspects and others have more value in others.
Never mind. V, this isn't a difficult concept. Value just means someone's worth. So when you say that some people have more value than others, you're saying that some people are worth more or are more worthy than others. By supporting this idea, you're begging for people to discriminate, to prejudge, and to oppress. The world is full of examples of this. Why would you support such an obviously bad idea? You have this narrative that you're so tied to that you're literally incapable of understanding any other argument. I'm telling you that I think you want to judge people based on what social groups they belong to. Your response is to talk about jobs. I haven't seen anyone deep-throat stupid arguments this much since Matt Walsh.
To claim that all people has value is ridiculous, right? It's literally to claim that we're like robots, that we're literally the same in every aspect, and we're not.
For the second time, equality doesn't mean every human being is exactly the same, and no rational person arguing for equality thinks it does. What's being argued is that all people should be afforded the same rights and privileges in society and under the law. Everyone has the same intrinsic value, regardless of their sex, race, sexuality, nationality, religion, what have you. That's the left's actual argument. I don't see why you have a problem with this, but I can see that you've burnt your straw man about jobs to a crisp. It's time to move on.
And I point out, like, if you believe that everyone has value, then an arsonist should have the same value as a firefighter.
And I'm going to ask the same thing I asked on Twitter. What the fuck do arsonists and firefighters have to do with this? Are you suggesting that the quality people you're talking about are criminals versus everyone else? Because I get the feeling that next you'll want to tell me all about the Jews. What a retard ideology. I responded that way because it's a common right-wing tactic to bring up a group nobody likes to see if someone will defend the group so the conservative can dismiss the argument through guilt by association. And I'm not going to fall for that, so I throw it back at him. If you're arguing that some people are better than others, there's only one place that goes, and I'm going to call you out on that. I know you won't like it. That's why I did it.
No, that's not what I'm saying, just some guy. I'm not talking about, like, the people who do not have value, that bad things should be happening to them.
That's not what I asked you. Again, I realize I'm not as fluent in English as you, so I'll repeat the question, and I'll make it as monosyllabic as possible. Are you talking about folks who do bad things versus folks who do good things? Is that what you mean by quality? Because it certainly doesn't sound like it. It sounds like you were talking about people's quality, value, or worth as human beings. And when I called you on it, you didn't have a good response because on Twitter, you used to just getting blown by pedocons. So you tried to deflect with this nonsense about arsonists and firefighters. You're trying so hard to be clever that you're just tripping right into stupid.
Like, what I am saying is that you should be able to create systems that helps people raise their value, and they should be encouraged, and the people with high value should be used as examples for others.
That has nothing to do with the left believing in equality versus the right believing in quality, and is a complete contradiction of your argument about professions. Ironically, what you said, minus idiocy about people's value, is the left's general position. Give everyone the same or equal opportunities, and look to those who've achieved success as a potential method for doing the same. Had you not been so busy strawmanning about the left, you might have noticed that. But I guess it'd be hard to see anything surrounded by those rectal walls, which also explains why you started talking shit about public health care and fat people, which has fuck all to do with equality versus quality. You are going off on such a multiverse of tangents, it's like Ezra Miller is running laps in your head. And this goes on for 4 minutes until the end of the video. Just wow. Vee's video is a perfect example of what happens when a former edgelord switches sides and then gets stuck in a new echo chamber. He's still doing it for the lulz, and as many right-wing ideologues like him have found out, I don't make a very fun target, because I'm willing to hitch a punk ass's back. So they try to get what they can and then run off to have docking sessions where they can get off calling me names like I told them they do back when I started my channel. Like I said before, I have the dumbest Saturday morning cartoon enemies, and Vee's response is further proof of this. And I've got to say, I'm a little insulted. I'm not asking for a Aizen Sosuke or a Frieza or a Magneto, but damn, can a nigga get a Mumra in this bitch? I mean, look at this avatar. Look at my intro. It's not the greatest thing ever, but the lines are clean. The design's nice. You can't toss me a Captain Ginyu or a Cobra Commander. Hell, I'd even take a Divatox. Well, wait. Scratch that. Reverse it. That's a little too desperate. I'll settle for a Queen Barrel. That's as low as I'll go. But what do I know? I'm just some guy.